come look at this.
Legendary helper here.
AKA, they canceled him. AKA, Mr. Persona non grata. Here in full effect.
With a little help. Whether you ask for it or not, it's cool. Thank me later. Now, if you think I'm bullshit, just look up the case on the screen.
423 CV 01013 USDC, Southern District of Texas, Houston Division. Now check it out. We're going to call this one Target Stories. And this is what it's going to be moving forward. Again, these are attempts at me trying to connect what I've experienced to other cases out there of various individuals that have gone over the edge. Because it would appear that the targeting apparatus, as it relates to organized harassment, their intention is to break you and make you go over the edge. And with this Target Stories approach, maybe it'll be helpful for anyone that's going through this, or anytime in the future when we need to look back and do a thorough analysis of how this stuff takes place, we can have this context here. But nah, the dude, Esteban Santiago Ruiz, spazzed out at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Let me preface everything by saying, yo, even if they doing it to you, don't go out like this dude, because you already know how it's going to play out. You can't win with violence. But nah, I hope that point is clear, because I already know how them crackers play, yo. They going to try to say, well, nah, I was glorifying shooters and this and that by making these videos. No, this is for educational purposes and also to help shed light on an element that exists in society, operating and causing these problems unbeknownst to the majority of folks out there. What justification could there be for doing something like this low key? In my opinion, to a certain extent, it's almost like practice for them. Straight up, it's like a T-word simulation, yo. That sometimes makes me feel that state-sanctioned torture is allowed in America. Yo, and in case anything happens to me, I've contacted the judge on this dude's case years ago, actually, and gave her the info. I contacted Esteban Santiago Ruiz as well. But yo, I don't know if they blocking my letters, but I gave Buddy the info too. Now, I'm not going to speculate beyond what I experienced and what I feel, yo, if they were doing that to me, they might have been doing this to him too. But nah, every time you go around the airports, that level of, trying to induce stress and screwing with you with the driving and the messing, like all these little underhanded tactics, it really pushes you, and they really try to push you around the airports for some reason. And what reason would that be? Yo, just put one and one together. But I remember when I was working as a rideshare driver, man, just going out there picking people up. And these people, this organized harassment apparatus, they playing games as if they trying to shake you. If you don't know how to react, if you react with your emotions, it can escalate. And I told y'all, it appears that these motherfuckers taking people's psychological profiles, disseminating it amongst the law enforcement community in certain areas, and then they weaponize that against you. You feel me? So if you sort of known to be a hothead, they'll use these places as like playgrounds to try to test you and push you, and it can go left. And the general public is none the wiser. Or shoot, maybe they crisis actors that are in on it too. But, you can spot the vehicles usually with their license plates, and you see them sort of operating outside on the perimeter of these airports. And in my scenarios, what I've seen is at Miami International Airport, as well as Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. And then when you get into that area, they converge and descend upon the targeted individual. And for me, since I have a pretty decent threshold for dealing with the BS, I would just brush it off and continue to grind as if it didn't even happen. But then it was getting to them that was doing that, because when you would drive and come back in that area near the airports, the same vehicles that was doing the simulation playground thing would come right back into the mix and engage once again, as if, again, they're trying to make you respond in a manner that creates the cycle of you being targeted even further. And I suspect that the vast amount of cameras that you got around these airports creates the perfect testing ground for trying these things out on guinea pigs. If one were to really want to get into this in the way that We can, in the age of AI, all you would have to do is just subpoena the camera footage and use Palantir's formula, process, or tools that they have to find patterns. And look, this is why I say, yo, if you're involved in this stuff, you working with them crackers and this is what you decide to do with your life, stop before you get into major trouble, yo. There are ways to spot if these operations were truly taking place. You can go down that rabbit hole, and maybe that's what we'll inevitably have to do. But in the meantime, let me show you the tactics that they were using out on the roads. Now again, they use these very same tactics at the airports. And yo, it's one thing to be on some investigatory type of stuff, but when you're actively trying to agitate the situation to create a violent encounter, then we have a problem. No? Let me outline the ways in which gang stalking, organized harassment, controlled schizophrenia, what have you, takes place based off of what I've seen. At its very core, it's all about gaslighting and the creation of various distractions that could possibly disorient you, get you to feel down about yourself, feel unmotivated, feel as if you're unworthy, angry, and overall discouraged. Now, when it comes to specifics as to what the organized harassment apparatus is doing out there on the streets, you have example number one, blinkering, or in layman's terms, bright car headlight harassment. Take some time to look at the picture, and you'll understand precisely what I'm trying to convey. The second organized harassment, controlled schizophrenia, gang stalking tactic that has been used against me is car exhaust noise harassment. Now, this is done by individuals connected to this organized harassment apparatus to make you hastily move along, to encourage, if you will, to leave, to move erratically. Now, this can get dangerous because if you move erratically out there on the roads, you can possibly get into an accident. That's why if I'll recommend anything to anybody going through this is to have a certain amount of poise and always maintain that poise, which, to be clear, is not an easy task when you have to deal with headlight harassment, specifically one headlight harassment. There are inordinate amount of vehicles strangely on the road with one headlight working. This is a psychological psyop tactic, if you will, that has been used against me by the city of Miami or whoever else is associated with the organized harassment apparatus in South Florida, which entails Miami-Dade County as well, and the various municipalities. The fourth tactic that has been used to torture me, which, by the way, they're all illusory, but the illusory rear view mirror fear harassment tactic. And this one's pretty self-explanatory. Just take a look at the picture. The fifth torture tactic is what I like to call illusory side view mirror fear harassment. Now, this one, as well as blinkering along with rear view mirror harassment, the solution is to adjust your mirrors to the extent that you are not going to be really seeing those major headlights blinkering and flashing behind you while driving. Now, the thing about this is that it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security to a certain extent, because you're not as concerned as to what is happening behind you, which is a good lesson for life, if we're talking theoretically and whatnot. But you got to always be on point, and so you're being effectively inhibited from practicing a sense of vigilance because these individuals are using this strategy. So it kind of opens you up to a scenario where something can be done to you because you were made numb to the notion of paying attention to your environment. And then you have the dark window tint fear harassment strategy, which is where there, again, are an inordinate amount of vehicles with extremely dark front windshields, or overall, all their mirrors are extremely dark. And you might think that this is some kind of undercover, but usually that's not the case per the research I've done. These are just individuals that have been allowed to, by the organized harassment apparatus, to have these tents. And they are notorious for making quick U-turns as you're walking. You get a quick U-turn in front of you. And again, it's to induce fear, anxiety. That's the 6th torture tactic that has been used against me. Now, the 7th is weird as These folks follow you around, sometimes several vehicles lined up, one behind the other. It doesn't matter if you're going speed limit, they're just gonna ride behind you. Again, in an attempt to make you feel awkward. And this is a shaming tactic, a tacit shaming tactic. Finally, number 8 is a specific torture tactic, but it also represents the overall illusory street theater aspect of this psyop. Because really it's nothing more than theatrics. But you're perplexed that your rights are being stomped on, usually with a wink and a nod. It just doesn't make sense because you're like, well, this is still America. But again, when you have the individuals that collude with one another to look the other way while my rights are being violated, with the expectation that they won't be held accountable because no one is going to be there to corroborate what took place, and also for me to be rendered crazy by this organized harassment initiative, the solution that I found is to document the incidents that occurred in real life on the internet and then legally protect it by either copywriting or trademarking some sort of media project overall that can be a conditional record, so to speak, just in case the entities that control the internet assist in shutting you down to further take away from your credibility.